India is known as the capital of diabetes. You're trying to say the behavioral sciences and your health are interrelated.
Everything that we do is because of what we think and how we behave. HbA1c number, it was I think about 5.5. It actually came down to 5.3 and every year I've been getting it done. It's now 5. He says, that fatty liver which is there in your last year's report is not there anymore.
Right. Welcome to another episode of Just Wise Talks, where we delve into stories of transformation and resilience. I'm Group Captain Mittal, CEO of Narayana Nethralaya. Today is World's Diabetic Day, and unfortunately, diabetes is not rising, it's escalating multifold. India is known as the capital of diabetes. So we thought it would be just pertinent to talk about the subject of diabetes. Today, I would like to pay my tributes to our founder chairman, Dr. Bhujang Shetty, who started this movement of diabetes reversal at Narayana Nethralaya. He fondly used to say, the job of the policeman is not to catch a thief, but to prevent a theft from having taken place. And he used to say, the job of the doctor is not to treat the patient, but to prevent the diseases happening in the first place itself. And it is so true. Prevention is much better than treatment. So today we have a guest, Mr. Ohri, who's a great strategist. He's on the faculty of many colleges. He goes and mentors young students and the teachers. He's a Rotarian. He's into social service in a great way. And he comes from a family who has a long history of diabetes.
Yeah.
And he came in contact with Dr. Bhujang Shetty, very live example of how diabetes, which we think is a downhill road, which can only be controlled, cannot be prevented. Welcome, Mr. Ohri. Journey with diabetes, pre-diabetic stages, how you prevented from aggravating it. I would like to hear from the horse's mouth.
Thank you very much for inviting me, first of all. And yes, I'm really truly grateful to Dr. Bhujang Shetty, for whatever he did, and it was a very chance meeting. But just to take a step back and tell you, so I. By education, I've done everything accounts, so I did my CA, did MCOM, did, the indirect tax management, but largely I've been into business and sales over my career. So I got good at it, and I realized that, human behavior has got a lot to do with that. And so I formally studied behavioral science, So behavioral science is pretty much, putting it simply, it's knowing why you do the things you do, and and how to do it better. So
wonderful.
So that's,
you're trying to say the behavioral sciences and your health are
it's
interrelated.
Because everything that we do is because of what we think and how we behave. So in one of the Rotary has these weekly meetings, and they invite a speaker. So the then president, and this was I think in July of 22, if I'm not mistaken. So the then president, Rotarian Sandeep Ohri, had invited Dr. Bhujang Shetty as one of the speakers.
Right.
So I was in charge of making the creatives,
Okay.
So anyway, we went for the meeting, and I'll never forget, he started off by saying, we were about 50-60 of us in the audience, and he started off by saying, how many of you in the audience are diabetic? So half the audience put their hands up. Says, okay, great. So I didn't, because I wasn't, my whole family had, my father had diabetes,
Right.
my mother had diabetes, we had the associated problems that come with it, the blood pressure, the heart attacks. My mom passed away because of a heart attack. My dad had that, he had multiple bypass. 2 years later, he had a stroke, so all of that happened. So I didn't have it, so I said, no. So he asked another question, which got all of us thinking. He said, how do the rest of you know you don't have diabetes? So he said, you must have got some tests done, and must have showed you maybe your fasting sugar was less than 100, or your, numbers seem to be okay. And then he showed us a slide chart which said that, based on your lifestyle, probably everybody is in some pre-diabetic stage. So the question is when, If
so
you
you're trying to say that most of us are sick decades before even we come to know about it.
He gave a very good explanation which we understood, which said pretty much that, at some point your body will give up and then it will start showing in the blood, by which time it's actually too late. So he says that, if you take precautions now, you probably delay that a lot more. And as a result, a lot more of the associated things that happen because you have diabetes gets better. So that stuck with me. This kind of a lifestyle, this kind of diet, this kind of foods, all of this will, worsen your situation.
Right.
So if you don't take corrective action, you're going to be amongst the people who raise their hands.
Right. So this was your wake-up call.
Yeah.
Most of us, we would not like to go about what people tell us, just hearsay, right? How did you try to translate this and get it supported by scientific evidence? Did you go for any blood check?
Oh yeah. So like I told you, since my father had a heart attack and funnily we didn't know he had diabetes.
Sure.
We knew my mom had diabetes because she got a blood test done.
Yeah.
My dad was afraid of taking a pinprick. When he got the heart attack, is then we realized that he was diabetic.
Right.
And so it was always on my list that none of this should happen to me. So I was in the habit of getting a full body profile checkup done once a year and all. And never really, at that time we were just worried about fat. You generally, you hear cholesterol, so you monitor cholesterol, and as long as that sugar number is less than 100, you don't bother about anything else.
Right.
So I had got it done before I met Dr. Shetty, because when we came here, we got it done. And when I started following I wouldn't say diet, but the guidelines that Dr. Shetty had mentioned, an annual checkup happened, so I got the test done again, and the numbers were different. That HbA1c number, it was I think about 5.5. I told you I wasn't diabetic. It actually came down to 5.3, and every year I've been getting it done. It's now 5.
Right.
So that number can go down.
Right.
Contrary to what everyone says, you can't control it. No, you can.
Yeah.
And it's not that I am starving or I am suffering or I'm not eating and I'm not enjoying the food that I'm eating.
Right.
So it's not that you have to be on a starvation diet and you have to suffer in order to get your health better. So what I really liked about what he told us is, he gave us practical guidelines, which we could implement.
Right.
He just said, try to cut this down and try to increase this a little and see how it works for you. So there was a time when I was in Mumbai earlier, I used to weigh 81, 82 kilos. When I came to Bangalore, I was probably about 78, 79. There was a time after about a year and a half after following this guidelines and diet, I went down to about 69 and a half. My doctor turned around and told me, I think you're losing too much weight, please eat something. So now I'm back up to about 72, 73. But otherwise, I lost weight, I lost inches. I'll never forget. It was a revelation. We went shopping and I said, years back, I bought a particular brand of jeans.
Right.
Okay, and it was a particular style, and it was 36.
Right.
And when we went shopping, I said, I want to buy that same brand of jeans, the same style, and I want to see what I fit into. It's 32 now.
Right.
So you lose weight, you lose inches, your numbers look better.
Oh, beautiful. You're saying with one thing,
yes,
there are multiple rewards, right?
So, and the numbers are good, and as part of the body profile, they do the ultrasonography of the abdomen and all that, to check the liver, gallbladder, everything. So it showed fatty liver, and naturally the lifestyle was all messed up. So the subsequent year when I went, the doctor was doing it, he stopped, he said, Mr. Ohri, what did you do? So he had a worried look, so I was even more worried. So I said, why, what happened? He says, that fatty liver which is there in your last year's report is not there anymore.
Right.
And I told him, are you kidding? He says, no, it's not there. And he searched and checked again.
Right.
And I actually have a report. So then I gave a speech to the doctor. Right. And I told him, I said, this is what I did, and this is who told me to do it. So
wonderful. So two things. One, you said, so this can be, you are not victim to your genes, right?
Absolutely.
You can
a lot of times people tell you, and you feel hopeless.
Right. It's a good news that you can prevent diabetes, and in fact, you can reverse the diabetes, right? I would like to understand from you, what were the major changes in lifestyle you introduced and which started showing the positive results?
That you get diabetes only if you eat too much of sugar or sugary things, so he cleared that for us very clearly. He said it's not just the sugar. So he gave us that perspective. He says, don't just watch the sugar. Right. You also need to watch the carbohydrates that you're eating.
Right.
So he actually said, bread, roti, wheat, paratha, whatever it is. So everyone said, if you're doing it in relative moderation, great. but you will not know what is relative moderation for you. Because it's for everyone, it's different. Everyone's metabolism is different. We break it down differently. So you'll need to monitor and figure out what is the level for you. So he had in fact suggested something radical. He says that you stop it for some time and see what happens. Do you really feel weak? Do you really feel undernourished? What do you feel? If your body accepts it and you're still moving around okay, it's okay. Your body can probably do without it.
Sure.
So I cut down the wheat, I cut down the bread, I cut down the pizzas, I cut down the burgers, cut down the potatoes, He also said, a lot of the fruits that we eat, he says, try not to eat the fruits which are really too sweet, because it's healthy sugar, but at the end of the day, it's still sugar.
Right.
And then if you're not mindful of it, you can tend to overdo that.
Yes.
So he says, of course, sweets, deep fried oily stuff, just cut out all of that, pickles, things like that. There's a lot of oil in it. We don't realize little bit, but it's a highly concentrated stuff. I stopped all of that.
Right.
You won't believe it, sir. It happened. So I told my wife, and the cook had cooked food, and I said, look, I'll just go for the meeting and come back, and then I'll have dinner. So after I heard all of this, I went back and I told my wife, I'm not having that roti. She said she's made it. I said, I don't know. I'm not having that roti. She said, what are you going to eat? I said, no, the doctor said don't eat roti. She said, what kind of a doctor is that? He said, don't eat roti. I said, no, he has a point. I'm going to try. Okay. So I didn't have the roti. She said, what are you going to do? I said, no, I'll have the bhaji and I'll have the dal and whatever else is made. But I'm not going to have the roti. People have this misconception that, cheese is bad for you and all that. He says, you could eat it.
Right.
He says, what about the cholesterol? He says, don't worry about all of that,
Yeah.
So he says, yeah, you eat cheese, but don't eat the other stuff.
Right.
So I said, okay.
If you look at the food pyramid, normally whenever we go to the clinics and the hospitals or to the doctors, there is a food pyramid which is displayed, right? And we see, the base of the pyramid is basically the carbohydrates, and then they say don't eat fats. Fats are bad.
Yes.
Right, okay. And protein, they still say, okay, fine, you can eat a little bit of proteins, right? Okay, it's okay, good for your body, muscle building and things like that. But they say abstain from fat.
Yeah.
So did you also practice something like this, or did you?
No, so like I said, there is a conception that, he says, look, fat is okay. You need some amount of fat.
Right.
You eat the cheese if you want to. So he says, just be mindful of what you're eating.
Right.
Be aware of it.
Right.
These are the things avoid if you can.
Right.
These are the things eat more of. And of course, so that's why, a lot of times people say diabetes is a lifestyle issue. I think it's absolutely right. If you eat non-veg, how long does the body take for it to digest?
Right.
And if you eat, vegetarian food, how long it's a lesser time to digest. If it's raw, uncooked, it's probably a little lesser time. So therefore it matters what time you eat food.
I understand.
Now if you're in the habit of eating food at 10 o'clock in the night, you have to sleep by 12. So the food is definitely not going to be digested. So if you're starting to eat a little earlier, it's so much the better for everyone. So I incorporated this.
Actually, as Dr. Bhujang Shetty used to say, that the difference between the pure sugar and the carbohydrate is that your body realizes carbohydrates are coming only after 5 minutes. Basically, carbohydrates are nothing but sugars, right? Thank you so much, Dr. Ohri. And on the words Diabetic Day, I would like to inform all our audience that it's time we start spreading awareness about its causes and the way we can prevent it. The new science about control of diabetes is available on the social media in big numbers. There is more to talk with Mr. Ohri. Stay tuned. Thank you.
You figure out what to fix in your lifestyle. Because if somebody is forcing you, it's not going to happen.
Would you like to talk some relationship between the insulin resistance and the diabetes?
The insulin that we produce in the body, the job is to suppress and control the sugar levels in the body.
Insulin is a very, very important hormone inside the body. But the problem with the insulin is either if it is less or if it is more, it starts causing all kinds of problems.